I'm Becky Lloyd-Pack.
And I'm Becky Stanton.
And this is the Doing Business Differently podcast.
Rest. How often, as an entrepreneur, do you give yourself permission to fully switch off and disconnect from your business? This is the topic that we dived into today on this episode with wonderful pod member Raluca. So Raluca actually took most of December 2023 off from her business. So she's sharing with us the reflections about why she made that decision and how she actually found the experience.
And it's such a beautiful conversation because we're all business owners, we're all passion-led, we all take this big creative action. And I think there's some interesting conversations around what is rest, what is restful. Yes, I think it's going to be a beautiful one for everyone around balance and looking after themselves and the role of rest.
Yeah, and also we talked about the topic of hustle as well and whether it's required to start a business, about whether you need to have those seasons of almost burning the candle at both ends or whether there's an alternative way of doing things. It was a really, really juicy conversation and we hope you enjoy it. So it is such a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast, Raluca. And I think what I love about this is that you and I have known each other for years now. Like our relationship, we met online during the pandemic, and just, being in touch with you all this time has been a pleasure for me. You've been a great business cheerleader for me. I know we worked together several times, but to actually be having you on the podcast feels like such a thrilling thing. And actually, I'm just gonna talk lovely things about you for the moment, because I feel like the Raluca I met, when was it? Was it like 2020?
2020, during the pandemic, yes.
I feel like 2020 Raluca would have been a bit like, I can't speak on a podcast, but here you are.
Absolutely. I remember I was just scared to just write my caption, even show my face on a story. And yeah, absolutely. Just did not cross my mind. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was, as I was introducing you there, I was like, this is great. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
But would you now like to introduce yourself to our listeners and just share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, so my name is Raluca and I'm an interior designer. I work in lovely Edinburgh and I just have this huge passion to create calm, thoughtful and timeless interiors. I just want people to have homes they really love to live in. And now I'm actually thinking a lot about my introvert peers because I'm 91% introverted, as I found out. And I just want to help people create a home that they basically can live and thrive in. That's my vibe.
I love it. Yeah, and that's, to be honest, that's kind of the vibe that we really want to be talking about today on this podcast. And there's a couple of things, really. I actually think there's a beautiful conversation around doing business as an introvert, because I'm quite naturally extroverted. Surprise for everybody. So I think there's a beautiful conversation to be had there. But also we want to talk about rest and talk about it from the perspective of you just took December off, all of December. And I think for many people, we have this ambition and this vision for our life where we take off extended periods of time, but then it never actually happens and it never actually comes to fruition. And you taking that time off is very inspirational. So that's what we'd like to talk about today.
Absolutely. So honestly, it was the first time I kind of pushed myself to do it, because I always say, I'm going to take a whole month off. That's my dream, but never really done it before. And this year I was just, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to actively stop taking on any new clients, any new work, because as we all know, during December, there seems to be this kind of last minute rush to get things going, to book clients, to book services and all that. And I was just like, no, this year I just want to just rest. Doesn't mean I actually 100% manage it, as is with anything that you try for the first time. But it was truly an interesting experience, one that I learned a lot from, loved it, And I'm definitely going to prioritize it. I want to make it like a yearly thing, like a non-negotiable. That's the long-term aim for it. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just honestly, I'm very grateful that I was in a position that I could do it, because I know not everybody is able to.
So as a fellow introvert, I feel like rest, time off is a big vision, isn't it? That kind of rebound, that reset, that coming home to ourselves. And in my experience, until recently, actually, because I actually took 3 weeks off in over December as well, for the first time ever. But I'd only ever taken that 2-3 weeks off because I was forced to, because life demanded it of me due to either my health or external circumstances. So I'd love to hear from you around what your intentions were. Like, why was the vision for you around December specifically? And yeah, what led you to the decision and the courage to actually do it?
Oh, wow, you put it like that. Courage never crossed my mind. It was just like, this is something I'm really... There was like a craving in my body to do it, and I'm just gonna do it just for the fun of it, like an experiment in a way. But yeah, to come back to this feeling of craving inside my body, I just felt the need to rest, and I thought I usually take around 2 weeks time off December to overlap with my husband's holiday as well. So that was something that I was doing anyway every year. But this year I just felt like this craving, like, it's gonna sound very woo-woo, but like my soul was craving rest, to just try it and see what happens. It was just telling me, just do nothing, just relax, stop working, stop being busy for the sake of being busy. Nothing major is gonna happen in 2 weeks time, like the first 2 weeks of December, that I'm gonna miss and be like, oh, I've missed that, it means my business is over because I haven't done that then and there. So it was this kind of inner nudge or sense, or sort of an inner knowing to just rest, and then kind of a curiosity to just see how it goes. And yeah, I ended up actually taking in the first week or so of January, so in the total more like 5 weeks. And it was glorious. I felt like I kind of recharged my battery completely, because as you know, usually when you have 2 weeks during December, then you're like, oh, I would have loved a bit, like a couple of more days. But this time around, doing the whole month, it was like, yeah, I'm good now. I've recharged. I'm in a good spot.
I love that. Yeah. And do you think it was easier taking December off because you knew there was a period of time where lots of other people would be off too? Do you think, because I know in the past we've talked about like, oh, maybe trying to take August off or other months in the year, and it's not quite gotten to fruition. Do you think actually picking a time of the year when you know the world was also going to go into a period of switching off, do you think that made it easier?
Definitely. So yeah, it kind of helped my inner critic to calm down a bit. Not so much the first 2 weeks, because it was still very, very loud, being like, you have to work, you have to work, you have to work. But definitely picking December, knowing that the whole world kind of stops to celebrate and relax and goes on a holiday, definitely helped smooth the transition in a way.
Yeah. And do you think with so you've mentioned the inner critic there being pretty vocal. So was that like from day one, inner critic was like, what are you doing? Or how did that like unfold?
Very interesting. Good question. I think first 3 days or so, I was like, yeah, having the best time of my life, best decision ever. Then the inner critic kind of started to creep in and be like, but you're wasting time. You have to do this and that. Maybe you should run a promotion. Everybody seems to run a promotion, like booking for New Year. Do something for, to promote services for New Year, take on bookings, take on clients. But then, and I guess this, what helped me was the journey I've been on for the past couple of years, and kind of knowing how to navigate a bit these feelings, and kind of giving a couple of minutes for my inner critics to go haywire and say whatever, and then be like, okay, you had your time, we can calm down, we can check everything, maybe just write every idea on a notepad or something. and it will appease my inner critic, and then we can just carry on with what we were initially trying to do, which was rest. So it was kind of like the first 2 weeks until kind of like my husband went on holiday and the whole world stopped for Christmas and New Year. So that period, the first couple of weeks, were a bit of like back and forth. I should work, I shouldn't work. So yeah, a bit of negotiation.
I feel like there's this beautiful question and maybe a celebration of, did you work?
No. In terms of client work, I did nothing. Although I had a project going on. So as an interior designer, I do have sites where the whole apartment is renovated. So I have to be kind of on call for that. And I was, in a sense, just a tiny bit, maybe 10% available in the sense of answering questions here and there, but nothing interiors related. But I did like write down ideas, things for this year, what I was planning this year, like ideas for a new design or service or something, which, yeah, we can get more into if you want. It's like all the ideas that came to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm really curious about. Whenever I have rested, whether it's holidays, weekends, you know, even just taking, I had a practice last year of like taking Fridays off, where it was like my play day just to have fun and do whatever I wanted. I was then inundated with solutions, ideas, creativity. And I'm just curious how you navigated that, because sometimes does that fall under the label of work because it's still work related, or does it feel fun and just open, like this receiving energy, or something in between? What was your experience?
That's such a good question. So for me, it was, I actively wanted to not work. So in my mind, I was trying to play, rest, read, do whatever. And I tried to stick to that as much as possible. Of course, minus the builders' questions coming in from side. But outside of that, yes, while I was reading, I was having a new idea come up. I was like, oh, this would be super interesting to try, and let's jot that idea down. And what I did was I just created a dedicated notebook, and I just wrote it down, everything. Like this idea, without the pressure of going into more details with it, or like actively having to work on it now, because I get tons of ideas all the time and it often gets too much. I get overwhelmed, and because in my mind, or my inner critic is that it's kind of telling me that I should do and apply every idea that I get. So in a way, it's knowing that no, actually I don't have to. I just need to kind of brain dump to create space in my head to calm down. It's just like I get this rush of I have this idea and that I should do. But once I kind of write them down, it's like, okay, the wave has passed. I can calm down and continue what I was doing, which was resting.
Yeah. And you know, I think what this is really making me think is that an important part of resting is almost being able to clearly define what we class as work, so that we can make that distinction. And it just got me thinking, like this weekend, my husband was doing some of his hobby and he was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go and like, I've shot some more footage. I'm going to go edit a film that I've like, you know, shot some stuff recently. I'm going to do that. He was like, oh, so you're working then? I was like, well, no, not really, because it's nothing to do, like, although it technically lives under my personal brand, it's not a monetized thing. It's like, yeah, it's really fun. And I think that's probably something that a lot of people can resonate maybe with, is when you are a person-led business, when it's built around you, your personality, your passions, actually that line between what's work and what's play can get really, really blurred. And so that's why almost probably we're even resistant to rest sometimes, because it's like, but I'll keep doing this. It's almost like productive play, or yeah, it can be difficult to navigate, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, I think everybody listening to this knows the famous saying that if you love what you're doing, you're not going to work a day in your life. But the reality is that we actually need to create some money so we can live and continue our day-to-day life. But absolutely, it's like I don't see it as work when I love what I do. Even when I'm working on proper client projects, I love it so much. I don't see it as work. It's just like I'm just having fun. I'm playing, and I'm incredibly grateful that this gets to be my life. And sometimes I have to pinch myself that this is what I do. I love it so much, and yeah, absolutely. It's a blur line, but then again, you said it. You set the boundary where it's work and where it's work, fun, play. I don't know.
Yeah. And when I think around that boundary for me personally, it's like what I do at the core, like what I do with clients, it doesn't feel like work. I would coach all day, every day. Maybe not because I'd be exhausted, but I would do it for free. And I have actually gifted things for free, for friends and for charity, and the work side for me is like the marketing. So like when I think around, like if I was to have like some time off and that line of work, it's usually the things that require more energy and attention and focus that doesn't come naturally. Yes, I wonder whether is it applying that way where like you kind of were open to ideas to come in, that receiving energy, right? But maybe there wasn't a need to implement or like strategize the masculine energy side of it.
Yes, exactly. So for me, it was this intense urge to rest, but mainly not to work for the sake of being busy, as you mentioned, to always be in the masculine of like, I gotta do this, I gotta perform, I gotta hustle in a way. I don't like that word at all, but it was because I think this is the other thing that maybe the listeners can resonate to as well. We're so used to and taught since we're super young that rest only means like relaxing on the sofa or sleeping or doing nothing. But it's so much more than that. It's not just physical rest. You need mental rest from your thoughts, from this infinite number of ideas that come to your mind. You just need rest for creating or just playing, or for example, just drawing without the pressure of, if you're creative, to transform it into a side hustle or something that it's making you money. So there are multiple factors like that. It's not just physical rest, it's rest or doing things that bring you joy. Like the things you were doing when you were a kid, when you had no worries, no pressure, no responsibilities. That's how I'm thinking of rest, or I'm trying to redefine my own way of looking at rest. So once you have that, I think anything that you do is it's not work. It's whatever you choose to label it as. And marketing, yeah, that's a whole nother area. I'm not gonna call it beast, but
hard work.
The work in itself.
Yeah, I think that's like, to be honest, I think that's actually such a beautiful thing, and almost an exercise I want to bring to the pod soon is like to get us all to define what rest means to us, and even like identify and create a list of like restful things and how we define it. Because yeah, I really struggle to like just lie on the sofa. Like I really, and to be honest, I can't even watch Netflix for that long. Like I get restless, which is quite an interesting word, isn't it? Restless, like not able to. Anyway, so yeah, being able to identify what does that actually mean? Because right now I've been doing a lot of like paint by numbers. For me, that feels really restful because it gives me an activity to engage with and to focus on that everything else can switch off. So I think that's a beautiful question that everybody can actually sit with and think about.
I agree. And do you know what I've found in my month off journey experiment is that you need to find or do activities that feel restful for you without feeling guilty. So I relate when you mentioned that you're sometimes feeling restful on the sofa. If I know I have a lot of work to do, or that I should have a lot of work to do, just watching an episode of Netflix, it's like in the back of my mind, I'm feeling super guilty, or my inner critic is like, you should be doing this. And the guilt raises to the roof almost. But when you're doing activities that you really, really enjoy, like painting by numbers, as you mentioned, or just doodling or anything, we're just reading, you're so immersed in that action or in that activity that, I don't know, it just calms the mind and it's peaceful. It gets quiet, at least for me, it gets quiet. And then that's when other ideas and creative things come through for me. So I think definitely it needs to be an immersive experience that helps you relax, actively relax. It can be jogging, it can be cooking, it can be, defining rest. And that's the main thing we all need to do.
And I recently got a Garmin watch, and I don't know if like all the Fitbits and the Apple Watches do it as well, but it's got a section called body battery. And so it works on basically the quality of your sleep and like your movement and your exercises. It controls your like blood pressure. Yeah, heart rate, not blood pressure. So it's with your heart rate and also like your breaths per minute. So it then gives you an indication of your body battery. So if you've been having like poor sleep, you might only get like plus 10 points, but you were already depleted yesterday. You might have done like a big workout that took a lot of energy. And it's been really interesting for me to then notice consciously what I'm doing and whether it's going to be draining my body battery or whether it's giving something back. And so when I have good sleep, I'm like, I've got loads of points. I got my body battery back up. And then also from a mindset point of view, when it tells me I've got a bad sleep, it kind of sets me up of like, oh, my body battery's down. So I'm trying not to get too attached to it. But also that it's like, okay, what things really help me to, breathe well, feel good, knowing that my body battery is going to be improving. So kind of has a purpose to it, right? And I feel that's helping with like the guilt, because I think that's universal, right? There's always something else we could be doing, especially as business owners where we are self-leading our business growth. There's always something to do. The to-do list never ends. So I feel like that's been a really beautiful perspective shift for me, that actually my walk in nature is going to be moving my body and also my breath and my joy. That's a huge energizer for me. So I think it's just a beautiful awareness of the purpose of the things we're doing, the intentionality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that you touch on something there that just kind of light up a ball in my head, that all of that, at least I think most of everybody who starts their own business has previously worked in a full employment kind of arrangement. So we were, at least for me, when I used to work in interior design studio, there wasn't like a never-ending to-do list of tasks. And the more efficient you were, the more you were rewarded with more tasks. So I think subconsciously that we took it on our new journey of self-employed. So we're kind of like, we need to, in a way, redefine or relearn where to cross that line of boundaries where, okay, this is my to-do list for today. I finished it. I'm not going to jump into extra tasks. I'm just going to take a moment or do, as you mentioned, Becky, a walk outside. Or for me, sometimes it's taking a bath that is completely relaxing me and refilling that battery up. So it's also, there's so many things that kind of...
Yeah. Do you know, the story for me here is like, the reason why I find it so hard to rest is an ingrained story of output versus worth. So how much I physically do, task-wise, output, visibility-wise, all that directly connects, not so much anymore, but definitely did, to how worthy I felt, to how good I felt about myself. And I know that came, like, for me, that started in school. That was like, the harder I work at school, if I do all my homework on time, if I do all this, like, it was actively rewarded. And again, that just trickles on through into corporate life. And so, of course, we're carrying it around in our businesses as well. But that's where, for me, it was like, if I'm resting, I'm not doing anything that is productive. Therefore, how am I possibly proving that I am worthy of love and support and all those things that we kind of learn as a kid? Like, it's, and I think it's starting to kind of unpack that story is where we can start to heal from it.
100%. I relate to that as well. I had that growing up, and I think it made me become, I want to say, good at what I do, but maybe it was just in disguise that perfectionist. And yeah, the the more work I do, the more valuable I am to people around me. And in university, translated to reaching every single deadline. I was never late with a project, not even my last project. Like a friend said that they were amazed. I finished like, I don't even remember this. She told me recently that she remembered that I finished my final project like 6 weeks in advance or something like that. So that was like, so you can see how strong that is ingrained in me as well. So it's a tough one to become aware of, and then wanting to do something about it, and then actively doing, because we all know we get to that point where we want to do it, but then we kind of froze in place. We're kind of stopping in our tracks. We're not actually doing the work. So kind of, I guess in a way, subconscious level, trying this experiment to taking December off was in a way an attempt to do that as well.
Successful one.
Maybe from outside. From the inside, I would say 50 to 60% successful. But I guess the first time is the hardest. The more you practice something, the easier it gets, definitely.
So I'd love to hear more about that. Like, why 50 to 60% successful?
Because interesting question, good one. Probably because of my inner critic, that I felt a lot of the days were like a struggle against that inner critic to calm it down, to be like, no, let me be. I said I'm taking the days off. Nobody's pressuring me. Nobody's asking me for anything. I've got the time. I can do it. And then it was just like allowing myself to rest. Because I had the time, I could do anything, but I wasn't actively allowing myself to rest. And it was this guilt of like, you should be doing this instead of resting. So that's why I'm saying kind of, I see it more as a 50-60%.
Yeah. So I want to actually now ask Becky a question. From your experience as a coach, I suppose, and working with other people, do we ever get rid of our inner critic?
It's more a relationship with your inner critic. So I feel accepting that it's just the inner voice, right? It's just this narrative. That narrative's always there. So the most enlightened person on earth will admit they have an inner narrative, right? The inner narrative might be more positive based on the work they're doing, but there's still this voice. Although there are a few people that say they don't have the voice, aren't there? Imagine the dream of having no inner voice. But other than that, those anomalies, like with their brain makeup, is always there. And that's why it's important with the relationship you have with that inner voice. And that's why certain practices like meditation, practicing being the observer, not getting too attached, the soulful practices of being the witness to what you're feeling and how you're reacting to things. It's allowing you to notice that you aren't that voice, and that allows you to just be more kinder, more compassionate and understanding of how that voice has become what it is. But I feel just accepting that their voice will always be there and just nurturing the relationship with it is the most empowering space.
Yeah. So now I'm going to throw it back to Raluca. What would you, if you were going to say you had 100% success, what does that look like in terms of taking that month off?
Everyday spa day. No, I'm kidding. I would say it would be just doing whatever comes to me. Just if I fancy going out into the town to have a cup of coffee, just go for it without extra judgment or thinking or over analyzing why do I need and all that. If I want to play a full day on the computer, like computer games for 8 hours a day, go for it. Nobody's judging me. That sort of thing. So that would be for me. And just do anything creatively that comes to me. And if I want to just stop midway through, drop something like a book or something, just stop without any judgment. Because here's the thing, I do know that, or at least that's how I'm looking at it. I don't think my inner critic wants to do me harm. I know it means well, and I know it's trying to protect me in a way. It just doesn't know how to kind of communicate that to me. So that's my kind of approach to inner critic, to my inner critic. But yeah, definitely just do whatever comes to mind with no worry, no judgment. Just like when we were kids, And you were just wanting, I'm going out to play. Bye. See you later.
I love that. And it's really interesting because it's something I've been exploring myself as well. And I feel like when probably like a year into my business journey, because I did go a bit into the hustle, just because I was so passionate and I went all in, and it was lockdown. There was nothing else to do, nowhere to go. So it was like all in energy. And then I realized, okay, I need more balance here because I know how this ends from my corporate career. I don't want to throw this away. And I recently, well, actually it was nearly a year ago now, I went on a retreat. And when I came home, it was like, I want that retreat vibe every day in my business. Like I really do want, I'm creative, I'm passionate, I want to do the work I'm doing, but I don't want to work for 10 hours a day because I know that doesn't serve me. Or maybe there's the odd day where I do, but then I got rebound time. So I really want my life to be a retreat. And what's interesting is when I share this with my husband, who's naturally more in his masculine energy, he reflects back to me, and I'm just curious what you ladies will say, of like, that's a privilege once you reach a level of success that you desire. So he was like, you're getting messages from people that maybe are, 2, 3, 10 steps ahead, that have reached the milestones, and then they start having the true retreat lifestyle. And I'm just curious, is this something that you felt yourself? Is there that pressure that it's not saying that we hustle until then, but I'm just curious. It's an interesting topic, isn't it, around progressing with the retreat lifestyle?
100%. And I just wanted to say I have the same thing. For me, it translates into having the freedom to do whatever I want on the day. I mean, I love what I do. I love it so much. I'm playing video games of interior design. I'm watching interior design TV shows. So for me, it's like a lot. Even my family jokes that what is wrong with me? They would never just like play video games about what they're doing as work. But it's a matter of, as you mentioned, Becky, of having a balance between the two. And I had that ingrained in me as well, that you're not allowed until you've reached a certain point in your business, or you kind of dedicated or sacrificed in a way a number of days, months, years in advance for work. But I don't believe that. I think that's just a masculine hustle mentality that's been in our society up until now. It doesn't mean like it's the only way we can do business and have that. And I think that the sooner you're aware of it, the sooner you're able to integrate it and plan around it and grow your business with it, instead of how I'm trying to do it now, add it and kind of integrate it. If you start with the two together, side by side, I think you can grow more sustainably. And that's what we want.
Yeah, I would say I agree and disagree with your husband, because I actually do think you do need a certain level of financial privilege to do that. Because to do it easily is what I'll say. Because I think if you have zero money coming in, you have zero, you don't have the support of a partner or a family to fall back on, and there is literally a time ticking on, if I don't make X money by this time, there's going to be a cascade of events that are going to negatively impact me, then I think actually trying to live that retreat lifestyle is probably even harder to do. And is, again, it's because this is a hypothetical situation, we're obviously just bouncing around here, but almost like, is that kind to yourself in the moment versus what the situation in front of you is kind of presenting? So just going like, I'm just going to be relaxed all the time. Like, are you potentially robbing your future self of relaxation when there's things you could be doing right now to better support it? So I somewhat do think in the earlier stages of business, or at certain seasons of business, it does require a bit more hustle, and it does require a bit more dedication and kind of ethic. However, with all that being said, I think you can do that with a retreat mindset. So it's almost like it's differentiating between your mindset and your actions in that regard. So I think you could probably like, actually, I'm going to view this whole thing as my whole life as a retreat, like with the energy, the emotions, the feeling, the vibe, the way in which I approach tasks. But today I've got a really busy day, and that's fine. It just means that I'm going to be doing more work. So I think there's kind of like, it's not a black and white answer, which, I mean, what is? But I know from my experience, there's certainly times, to be honest, there's times when I want to be hustling. There's times when like I get a new idea and I'm like, this is literally all I want to be doing 24/7. Like, I'm so excited about this that, yeah, I know I'm probably working beyond the hours that on a regular day I would want to, but I'm okay with it. Like, it's not coming from that, like, I'm pressured to do this. And I think that's where, like, for me personally, like, navigating all these things, there's a difference between hustling because you think you should versus hustling because you want to. And I think, unfortunately, when you start off, it feels like hustling is the only option we're ever shown. Like, we're not shown, like, slow growth is not a thing that is talked about. It's not glamorized. It's like, oh, we hear the overnight success stories. So when you enter business, the narrative is like, you need to get your nose to the grindstone. And there's always that analogy, isn't there, of like starting a business is basically like trying to get a rocket to take off. When it's on the ground, you need a hell of a lot more fuel to actually get lift. But once you've reached a certain point, momentum carries it and you can use a lot less fuel to keep it going. And I kind of do see business that way, because once you started to like, so it's like the same, there's a program on, I think it's on Netflix, it was on Disney Plus, called The Biggest Littlest Farm. The Biggest Little Farm. And they basically built converted a piece of land that was like completely barren into this regenerative farm that sustains so many different types of life. And the theory, even with that piece of land, was for the first like 6 years, it's going to be like constantly working to get it going. But then you reach a tipping point where actually you've set up an ecosystem that self-sustains. And so I think that's probably a nicer metaphor than a rocket.
They're both powerful, aren't they? But yeah, I feel like it's that. And I feel like the hard work, the hustle, I think we can all agree that's not our terminology. And I feel like the words that really work for me at the moment are this creative action. Like, there's no stopping me when I'm aligned, excited, and passionate about what I'm doing, right? It's a joy. I can work until 9 p.m. I'll work at weekends, right? Because it's like so aligned and I'm excited. And I feel that's what I'm creating, this kind of, I'm trying to move away from working 5 days and then weekend. Naturally, I'm not forcing it. I'm not forcing myself to work at weekends if I don't want to. But even that mentality just still feels like outdated to me. And I've got a partner that, well, it's not really a 9 to 5 in the military. I mean, it's a very different working schedule, but I'm trying to find this where every day feels like this balance. And so I've been playing for a while of, beautiful mornings, setting myself up for success, effective working, priorities, doing the things. Sometimes they're not fun things, can be marketing, right? And then really enjoying the afternoons and evenings. So it's kind of this balance of all three. And I've been playing with that. And, it doesn't always fall into that way. Sometimes there are fuller days. My client days are fuller and energetically more giving. And yeah, it's just an interesting one, isn't it? Around that mentality. And I think it is that kind of old school thinking of you just have to work hard and retire at 30, or whatever the books are about, right? Go hard and then just get enough money and retire. But we are hearing the other side of the story these days, right? That people are miserable, that their health deteriorates because of it, and all of those implications. So it's coming back into the type of life we desire from the future and bringing it more in the now, really. That's the lifestyle. So my retreat vibe is going to be different to both of yours, right? We're all going to have different retreat lifestyles, but it's more around balance, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And what BLP touched on there, it just reminded me how I was in my early years, and as well, I was being busy for the sake of being busy, and that I had to do all the things, and looking on social media and being like, oh, I need this, I need to do this, means I need to add this, I need to do mailing links, I need to do a promo campaign, a funnel, and all that, because maybe very naively I went into this being like, oh, I can do this, I can do interior design, I can have a business without knowing anything else. But yes, and I agree that you do have to in the beginning, to kind of put in a bit of work, but that doesn't mean you have to work 24/7 until you pass out from exhaustion. I think it's more like implementing bit by bit your mindset. Your mindset is it's the biggest thing. It's just, I was just talking to my brother actually the other day, and he told me like that he heard something that was genius, that said, if you could be a pessimist or an optimist, what would you be? Which one would be better to be? And the answer was apparently to be an optimistic, because if something happens, you have a greater time passing through that experience. You're enjoying it more. So in my mind was like, even if you feel something like a negative experience, your positive mindset means that you're not necessarily going to see it as such a negative thing happening to you, so you're going to enjoy your time more. So I would say 100% it's a mix of, I don't want to say hustle, but like putting in the work until it reaches a certain point where you have everything covered, like a website, your packages and everything, so you can relax a bit. But I would say going into it with a better mindset, instead of I have to do everything, it's all on me because I need to get in that sales, which I've been there. I've lived through a full year of that panic in my head alone, sadly. I could have used a better co-pilot in my inner critic. Mm-hmm. So having that vibe, or being aware that you can do things that can help you relax, to reground yourself in a way, definitely that's helpful.
And I think that's such a beautiful reminder as well, that everyone has different energy levels. Everyone's got a different amount to give, and in different seasons. And I feel that creeps into like the social media, what everyone else is doing. But there's some seasons of life where you only have so much to give to your business. You know, I've had quite big personal moments in the last few years, and there's been seasons where emotionally I can only show up for my clients, and I have to let go and not focus too much on all the other things, letting go of like the intentional growth so that I can look after myself. And I think that's a really important message as well when we're growing our business, that yes, there are seasons to grow, and there's some seasons where it is actually maintaining and looking after ourselves and rebounding from the growth. And it's just like coming back into yourself, isn't it? Understanding yourself, what you need, what rest is for you, all the things we've spoken about, and giving it to ourselves guilt-free if possible.
Absolutely. There's no business without you.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're self-employed or a solopreneur.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And it's reflected in nature, right? We see it. Springtime, new growth everywhere, lots going on. And then by the time we get to winter, it is that real coming back in. And just because it looks like nothing's happening in winter doesn't necessarily mean it is, that or isn't. There's lots of stuff going on underground as well. So I think with all these things, like the way I see it from that kind of like quite a spiritual perspective, if you like, is we're still sort of suffering the impacts of like the Industrial Revolution and things like that, and time as a commodity. That's still within our culture right now, whereas I can see a shift that we're moving, and maybe it's just the circles I'm in, maybe it's not shifting across the world, but I certainly feel like for myself and the people I speak to, we are definitely moving into more of like a natural cyclical way of living that almost reflects what nature does around us. So one thing I actually wanted to ask you, with you being an interior designer, and also I will give full credit, Raluca helped me design my office She actually helped me do it in a different property, which was rented, with the full brief that it needs to be transportable. So everything you see in here was actually selected and curated by Raluca for me. So just FYI, if you want a lovely office to look great on your Zoom backgrounds, go check out Raluca. But on that same topic, even thinking about rest, how can like our actual physical environment impact that? And is there things that we can do in our homes, in the spaces that we spend most of our time, to actually help us even maybe cultivate more of a retreat lifestyle day to day, or really embrace that like you said at the very beginning, a home that you love? Like, what are maybe some of the things that we can start to think about?
I love doing this. Thank you so much for asking. Absolutely. First thing would be to figure out what you want to surround yourself with. When it comes to any place, really, so this is not necessarily restricted to an interior design office or your home office or whatever. You have to have, in my opinion, kind of maybe 3 to 4 main things. First one would be absolutely have natural light and the opportunity to see outside. I worked in an office where unfortunately we were on kind of first level and we were never seeing the outside. So your kind of sense of time and kind of placement was a bit lost. So having that access to natural light and seeing outside, it creates a feeling of calm inside you, which is incredibly helpful. Second, again, related to nature, because we subconsciously crave it, anything that you can introduce in terms of nature and greenery will definitely be a game changer. Just if anybody listening, if you are surrounded by plants, just do an experiment, take them out and see how empty the room feels without it. So surrounding yourself with nature will subconsciously nourish that nature-human relationship that we all crave. Another thing that we could do, and I do recommend this as much as possible, if you can, try to declutter your space visually. If you are a person who loves a lot of things, to see a lot of things, then this maybe might not be for you, but still you can still arrange things around you so that it creates a bit of calmer sense to your space. Because visual clutter subconsciously nourishes, in a way, that stress, which we all know is not super helpful. And the last, most important thing that you can do, in my opinion, is have what I like to call non-negotiables around you, or some people call them distressors. It's having a couple of items that you absolutely love and adore, or mean something personal to you. Because we all know when you get super, super tense and stressed out working, you have those moments where you subconsciously, at least I do it, I turn away and I kind of gaze out of my window for a good 10 minutes. That's one distressor for me. But another can be a photo of a loved one, or a gift that you had, or a trinket that you bought from a holiday that instantly calms you down. So just to recap, you could always look at your lighting, have natural light if you can. If that's not necessarily possible, you can also use, of course, when it gets dark, you can use artificial light, but my advice would be to have a warm light. If you go for white light, that tends to be a bit sharp and reminds people of hospitals, and then the stressor goes up again. So just you don't need to know much about that. Just go for yellow light that soothes and kind of induces that cozy, relaxing vibe. Then you surround yourself with plants if you can. Declutter visually as much as you can. And then, surround yourself with trinkets that you love and that are your distressor or your non-negotiables. And that works for every room.
Like I love
the foundations.
They're so, so beautiful. And there's a couple of things that I've been doing this year that probably tie into those things as well. But candles, like in the winter for me, are just instant relaxation. And I'm getting into candle making this year. It's one of my ADHD hobbies, got many. But like painting candles, making candles, like playing with aromatherapy. But I've got this new ritual now that when it gets dark, I mean, you could argue it's too many candles, but I literally go around lighting all these candles and it brings so much joy. And it's I don't know how you pronounce it. Is it like Hygge?
I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but yes.
Hygge, isn't it? But instantly I just feel relaxed at like this like it's that kind of warm light, isn't it? And that kind of flickering. And the other thing I've been doing, which ties in with my goals in my home, is where the Christmas tree was, we'd moved some furniture around to make space for it, and then I've now created that corner as like a wellness corner. So it's now got my yoga mat, we've got those acupressure mats, it's got my meditation pillow, and I've made it like really like lots of crystals and things. So now there's like no resistance. My retreat lifestyle is in that corner. Like that's where I go to feel it and that environment. And I'm sure I could get some interior tips from you. I'll send you a picture, Raluca.
Absolutely, it would be
But
my
it's
pleasure.
that kind of grounding energy of using my space and things, of knowing that that's my relaxing corner for my rituals.
I was gonna say, we as introverts, we crave more than our counterparts a corner that's our own, that's kind of cozy, that's kind of quiet, where we can kind of retreat, recharge, and hear our thoughts. So it's very interesting that you instinctively did that, and I'm so happy for you that you did that. Absolutely, it's like
like no husband area.
Yeah, your area. Your area, surround yourself with candles. It's amazing. Yeah, whatever creates that feeling of relaxation.
Yeah, and I think because it's in my living room as well, it's really accessible. I'm very grateful that we live in housing that always has extra bedrooms. And I used to always have like a wellness room like with my office, but that always felt like a kind of like taking myself into a room. And I can't really explain it, but it just didn't feel as enticing. But where it's in like this big living room area, I see it all the time as well. So it's always this grounding place of, even if I'm not in it, it feels calming. It feels like, oh, look what I've got. And it just feels nice.
But you know what, even if you don't have that space, you don't necessarily have to have a dedicated room or a corner. You can scale it down. It can be a corner on your shelf unit. It can be a dedicated shelf unit where you can have a tray with your things, a dedicated candle or something that's just for you. It doesn't have to, because I know, especially living in London, spaces are tight. Even here in Edinburgh, some places are quite small, so you can fit so many things inside. So it doesn't have to be, I just want the listeners to know, it doesn't have to be a major or dedicated room or corner. Yeah, exactly. It can be a tiny anchor that is just that only you know about, and it calms you every time you see it. So it's just interior design, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't have to be very grandiose. It just, in my opinion, it has to work and function to keep you safe, so you can safely live inside it and be beautiful and be whatever you need it to be.
I love that. Love that. So helpful already. Like, I mean, obviously, I know you help with this space. I've got 2 plants that are just out of camera to my side here. And I actually, every now and then, I take my bigger Monstera and put it in the bath so they can water there. Whenever I come to my office, I'm like, ew, it's so bare in here. Like, it's just like a white box. Like, what? So yeah, I totally resonate with that. Yeah, well, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you, Raluca. And I think, like, even for me listening to this episode, I just feel a lot calmer after it. So I'm actually hoping that if somebody is listening to this that understands that they do need to take more restful time for themselves and is maybe on that edge of like, I feel like I'm getting close to burnout, or I just feel like my soul is also calling for rest. I think there's some really beautiful nuggets that have come out of this conversation. And, you know, you don't have to take 5-6 weeks off to have that recharge. Yes, it's something that I think if you want to do, you should actively plan for it and make it a reality. And like, also, I feel like we'll have to have you back at some point to talk about your mindset journey at some point, Raluca, but also do the mindset work in advance that will allow you to actually take that time off as well. But even if you just start to take those little moments of, okay, how can I define what rest is for me versus what is work? Like, what are those boundaries that I want to draw? And if you can identify activities that are restful, that are filling that body battery, I think that's like a really beautiful place to start for people, so that they can be like, right, you know what? It might just be 15 minutes of reading my book. That feels really restful, and start to introduce more of that into your life. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll make sure we'll drop all your links in the show notes below as well. So if you do want to go and check out Raluca's work, do look there. And yeah, lovely to chat to you.
Thank you so much. It's truly been an honor to just come and chat with you. It's always such a lovely thing. Yeah, I'm all calm now, and I've refilled my battery as well, which is amazing for an introvert.
Yeah, with people.
Exactly.
Alignment, though, right? It's the right people.
I always say that introverts are extroverts around the right people. So, yeah. Thank you so much. It's been an honor. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. And if you're listening to this over on our Substack, we'd love for you to join the conversation and let us know your thoughts too.
Likewise, if you actively want to explore what doing business differently looks like for you, then do be sure to check out the pod, which is our private community where we share a bunch of resources every month for you to play with as you define your way of doing things.
Inside the pod, there's also a ton of live sessions held every month too. To check it out, just head to the show notes below where everything is linked for you to explore further.
Thanks so much for listening. Speak soon.
Lots of love.